Even Paul Feinbaum knows the SEC's dominance in college football is over.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I've got Steven Willis here of Locked On Ole Miss. Had to bring on an SEC guy to talk about this downfall of the SEC that even Feinbaum is admitting. Penn State has the fifth best odds to win the national championship. Okay, well, that's a thing that's going to happen, and South Carolina to the playoff. I mean, crazier things have happened. So, Steven Willis, let's talk about this, because Feinbaum has been the most pro-SEC guy. When the playoff was starting and the blowouts were happening, he was out there gaslighting everybody. Oh, this wouldn't happen if you put in Alabama. Oh, the SEC. And now, after Ohio State wins national championship for the second straight season, the Big Ten wins it all. The SEC does not. The SEC wasn't even in the national championship game for the last couple of years. And even the biggest SEC homer out there, who's literally paid to be an SEC homer, is saying, yeah, the Big Ten runs college football now. How do you react to that as an SEC guy?
I think he does whatever he needs to say to get clicks, and whatever he feels is going to get him clicks, he's going to do that. It doesn't matter if he's paid by the SEC, because at the end of the day, he's paid by ESPN. So those clicks actually do matter. But I don't think that the Big Ten runs college football. I don't think that the SEC runs college football. What I do think is going on is the era of elite programs are dying. There is not going to be an Alabama 2015 pop-up. There's not going to be an example of this Ohio State team much past this. This is the death throes of the old system. And the example of that is the team that I cover. Who talked about Ole Miss football over 3 years ago? This has been a slow death to the elite club. Ole Miss needed Alabama and Georgia to fall down just as much as everybody else did. And now that that's happening, Ole Miss is on the cusp of making it to the playoffs. So I don't know if the Big Ten runs college football, because they don't, because they have, three really decent teams that's very top heavy and about 16 teams that's very mid to bad. The SEC had about 2 or 3 teams that were good and a bunch of mid to bad teams. It's a lot of the same thing in college football. And isn't that the point of why we started doing this to begin with?
Well, what are you referring to as this? The sport or the 12-team playoff?
The 12-team playoff, the transfer portal, NIL, all of it, the totality of what's going on in college sports right now is benefiting the fans, because fans have screamed forever, we want parity. And forever, you had about 6 teams that could recruit to the playoff, and they were able to do that. And they had their nice little circular thing, and it was a boys-only club, and nobody could get in there. And now that it's opened up, you have 20, 24 teams or so that can make the playoffs. I think this is all good things.
Well, you have 20 or 24 that can make the playoff. I don't think you have 20 or 24 that can win a national championship right now.
We don't know that. I think now the name that's on my shirt, beware. And I understand everybody's going to roll their eyes, but if Ole Miss would have made the national championship game into the tournament, got into the playoffs, I wouldn't have been surprised if Ole Miss won the whole thing. They had the second best they'd have the second best roster in college football. And that's just an example of a team that at that point was 14 or 15 on the list. So we don't know. And also the committee, they have to do a better job of seeding these teams and find a better way to get teams into the tournament.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't appear that that's going to arrive for 2025. We'll be stuck with the same format. That's according to ESPN's Heather Dinich. But I think for the SEC, Steven, I still look at them and say, this is the best conference. I do, even after this season, even after consecutive years in which they haven't won the national championship. The difference, though, is the level of benefit of the doubt that I provide to the SEC when assessing or discussing college football teams or matchups or who should be here, who should be there. It's not the same. It's not the same. I still look at a 9-3 SEC and think it's comparable to a 10-2 Big 12, but I don't think that the gap is as big as it used to be. And I think we saw that play out over the course of the entire season, in the non-conference slate, in bowl season, in the playoff. I think that we have a full season of data points there. But here's the other side of the coin that I can't get out of my head, Steven, is that I don't expect the SEC to just suddenly become average, to just become okay. You still have a bunch of programs with a bunch of talent and a bunch of high-level investment, and a bunch of great coaches and a bunch of money. But this has been a new phase of college football, and they're adapting to, or adjusting. Adjusting is the word. They are adjusting to the new era. I believe they can find their footing again and go on, before the last 2 national championships that were won by the Big Ten, it was 4 straight by the SEC. I believe they can get there again. I just don't believe that I didn't think they were there this season, and I don't believe that it's going to be the same as it was.
Now, we don't know what it's going to be, honestly, because if you go back to 2014, Ohio State was also the winner of the first 4-team playoff. So the first 12-team playoff, first 4-team playoffs, and we've all talked about, listen, as an SEC person, we've all heard down here, every time Alabama lost a football game from like 2015 on, oh, the dynasty is dead. The dynasty is dead. But it kept going on and on and on. I think a lot of this is just clickbait stuff. Congratulations for Ohio State. That roster was absolutely fantastic. They got Will Howard going. They won in spite of Ryan Day, which, we're all going to be surprised by that.
Or alternatively, Ryan Day is just good. And
no, I don't think so.
I know that he put on the worst coaching performance of the season against Michigan, but I mean,
against Texas, he didn't do well. It is amazing how different that team looked going against teams that just drop 8 and played full zone defense versus teams that decided to be a man and play man-to-man defense. Notre Dame said, we're going to go in there and try and go man-to-man defense with those wide receivers. Good luck, buddy.
Well, for Ryan Day and Ohio State, they're going to lose a lot after the season. But they could still be really good next year. Wouldn't shock me if they make a title run, but I certainly don't expect them to the way that they did this year.
They're going to be at the level like Georgia and all of those. You're going to see them take a step back. The amount of investments there, but it's not going to be at the same level it was. They had a $25 million roster out of the transfer portal last year. I mean, they got their
not exclusively. They also paid money to bring guys back and stop them from going to the NFL.
Yeah, but their investment and their level of investment was higher. It's also very funny that teams that have a lot of money and high market teams, they always win for reasons other than money. But if a team is not winning, it's always because they're a low payroll team. You notice how that works? Because at the end of the day, this is all about money. So we'll see what happens with Ohio State. They're going to be fine because they're always going to be fine. Ohio State's always going to be good. They're one of the richest teams in the entire country. Michigan's going to be back. Penn State will be fine as soon as Drew Aller graduates. It's just one of those things to where those 3 teams are going to be good year in and year out. And the SEC, it's going to rotate a little bit more. And I think that's where the pride comes from of the Southern fan, and what ticks off the non-SEC component is the fact that it rotates. And because it rotates, we walk around with our chest poked out as like, see what I mean? But it just happens to work that way. You're going to hit on a big-time quarterback. You're going to hit on a big-time playmaker, and that team's going to make a run, and that doesn't really matter what conference you're in.
Well, the Big Ten's won 2 in a row. I don't know that
we do not want to have a national champion comparison, though. They have won 2 in a row. I will give you that. But haven't the SEC won like 15 out of 20?
Yeah. But in the modern era of college football,
it's the modern era.
In the modern era with NIL and the portal, and things have changed. The SEC's running behind. It's dead, Steve. It's all but dead. It's obviously not. Yeah. I don't know that I would pick a Big Ten team to win a national championship next year. Ohio State and Oregon both lose a lot. Michigan loses a lot. They should be improved, but they might be working in a freshman quarterback. They brought in a transfer from Fresno State, but I don't know. I struggle to think that Penn State, which has got a veteran-laden team, I think they kind of hit their ceiling with that unit this year. They could get there again. I don't know. I think it's a great opportunity for the SEC to claim it next year, but I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite.
Well, I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I think there was a way too early top 25 by On3. I think it's Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, and had Texas as the number 1 team. if his name was Arch Davis, Texas would not even be a top 10 team.
Oh, no, they'd be in the top 10. They would certainly be in the top. Their defensive line is going to be disgustingly good next year.
Well,
and Arch Manning is clearly talented. They will have some questions at receiver, but you look at the way Texas has recruited the last couple cycles, what Arch can bring to the table, and Steve Sarkisian has been to the semifinal 2 years in a row.
It's potential. That's the reason they got put there. Ohio State's up there. They're losing a lot. But the point is, like, the top 10, other than Drew Aller, which I don't no idea why they're fourth, but we'll ignore that for a second. It's all new quarterbacks. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Was it Dante Moore? Is that
Dante Moore is likely to start at Oregon, yeah.
Julian Sayin at Ohio State. Drew Aller. Like I said, I have let
me get you out of here on this with a 10-second response. Nico is back at Tennessee. Am I crazy?
I don't know if back is the right word. It's just a situation.
Well, I mean, he's going to be playing quarterback next year, and he was playing quarterback this past year. That's just that's a playoff team with its quarterback who's got more experience now.
Yes, but they lost their player and their whole entire offense, which was the running back.
That is true. There's some work to be done. Steven Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, always doing great work over on YouTube wherever you get your podcasts. And he mentioned Penn State, who have the 5th best odds to win the national championship. That is crazy? Maybe? That's next.